Jeremiah,
Sir.
thank you for coming down. It was a how far drive?
It wasn't too bad. About an hour and a half. Volume okay? Too loud? Good? Okay, great.
And I'll adjust as we go.
Good deal.
But thank you very much. I've been seeing your work. We're glad that you made it down here. Most of the folks in this room have not ever seen your work, so they don't know anything about you. And his turnings are just amazing. And
Go on.
I think you happen to be friends with somebody else that's spent a good bit of time here, Michael Anderson.
Yeah, Michael was a good friend of mine.
Michael will be here next month. But thank you so much for coming. And again, it's going to be a little bit weird. He's going to do a slideshow, and during this turning, he's probably going to have us switched up there with some of the slides. And in that case, Charlie will switch camera to up there because on the recording is not going to have what he's talking about.
I think what we'll do, if it's okay, I think we'll just simplify things. I think I'll do the intro with the slides. It'll be a few slides just about me, kind of my intro.
But
And
it's
then,
okay.
I just don't want to create too many logistic headaches.
No, it's fine.
Okay, okay.
I just wanted them to know, it might take a second or two to switch around while we're doing it.
Cool.
So let me switch the overhead to you.
Excellent.
So it should be on this camera here. So.
Okay, yeah, perfect. All right, should we launch into it? Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me out here. My name is Jaramiah Severns. Like Tim alluded to, I live in Roswell. I'm an active member of the Atlanta Woodturners Guild, so I see some familiar faces in here, but if you haven't met me before...
I'm waiting for him to tell.
Yeah, I mean, you can go ahead and show the slides. Yeah. So yeah, I live in Roswell. My wife Anna and I moved here from California by way of Chicago about 4 years ago. So I'm still a relatively new Georgian, but we love it here. The wood turning community is incredible, so I'm grateful for that. I'm an Air Force vet, 9 years active duty, stationed all over the place, Texas, Utah, Japan, but I've been out longer than I was in, so it seems like a lifetime ago. I used to work in tech, but as of last month, I quit. I said I'm kind of done with that. I had enough. I've been 22 years in tech, so I decided I needed to. It was kind of getting in the way of my wood turning, so I figured I got to just go all in. So here we are, and I've only been turning since 2021, so I'm still a relatively new turner. But I try to make up for it with time in the shop. I'm down there all the time, and my wife's kind enough to forfeit the garage and let me kind of take it over, and I spend probably more hours than she cares to tally down there. But yeah, I love it. It's my life's passion now. I do mostly hollow forms. I started out with bowls and some spindle turning, but once I saw hollow forms, I was hooked, and I just kind of went all in. I did a class with David Ellsworth. I was very fortunate. I'd only been turning about a year, so a lot of it was wasted on me, unfortunately. But that's where I first got a little taste of it, and then I realized, I gotta just figure this out. This is what I'm gonna do. I made some really terrible hollow forms after that class, just with the limited knowledge I had. Then I went and took a class with Mike Joukowsky, changed my life. I really learned how to do a hollow form properly. I kind of had enough experience and made enough mistakes at that point that it was a useful class for me, and I learned a lot. So he's a big source of inspiration for me. If you don't know Mike's work, look it up. He's just a fabulous turner. Kevin Jessikel, who I'm lucky enough to call a friend, he had a class at Aramont a couple years ago that I took that helped me get to the next level. So I'm sort of just standing on the shoulders of giants as my turning career, if you will, progresses. But Kevin's work is also phenomenal. If you're on the AAW forums or WOW or any of those places, or at the symposium, you'll see a lot of his work. And then my North Star is Gordon Browning. He's kind of a little known hollow form turner, not a big online presence, but his vessels are just phenomenal. These big, like parabolic curves that I really appreciate. Tiny little openings. He uses a lot of exotic African woods. So those are the three folks I look to for inspiration when I'm kind of feeling in a little bit of a creative rut. So here's some of my recent work. It might look similar to what we saw on the previous screen with some exceptions, hopefully. Yeah, I like big, voluminous shapes. I like parabolic curves that start at the rim and end in the base that kind of disappear into the table. I like tiny openings. I try to go for no bigger than an inch or a half inch usually is my target. All the tools I'll use today for hollowing are 3/8 inch in diameter. And then I also do what I call extreme void pieces, where I take a burl and I'll use the natural edge and I'll just basically leave half of the vessel exposed. It always seems kind of a waste to me that, hollowing is what takes the most time and the most skill and the most patience. And you never really get to see the fruits of that labor unless you pick the vessel up. So the stacked form series that I do with these huge voids let you appreciate the inside of the hollow form a little bit. And they all have a little, hopefully, complementary stand that helps them sit upright. Because when you are missing half the vessel, you tend to have issues with balance and stability. So that's a few of the things I've done here in the past year or so. So yeah, let's get to it. I'll walk you through some of my techniques today. I'll call it like my primary sequence. I want to note today that I'll show you some of the tools I use. I have a lot of homemade tools, but what I'm going to do today, it can be done with off-the-shelf tools from Mike Tchaikovsky, from David Ellsworth, from John Jordan. They can all get you to where we're going today. But when we get to the hollowing part, I'll kind of show you some of the homemade stuff and explain when it comes in handy, when you'll have to kind of revert to homemade tools versus off-the-shelf stuff. So we'll prep the blank. It's pretty standard. If you've ever turned a bowl and made a tenon, this will be very familiar to you. We'll do some shaping on the exterior. Then we'll do some hollowing. This is where, hollowing tutorials or demos are kind of notorious for lack of a more eloquent term, being boring, right? A lot of blind hollowing, you can't see what's inside. So I have a little trick that I like to use to hopefully mitigate that a little bit. I'll show you how I prep when I finish on the lathe. I don't finish everything on the lathe, but my primary finish tends to be shellac, which I do find works best on the lathe, and I'll show you how I set that up. And I'm still able to get that tiny little base that I like to have. We can talk finishes, time permitting. Of course, I'm not going to do anything in terms of finishing as part of the demo that takes hours or days at least, sometimes weeks depending on what kind of finish you're using, but I can talk through what I use and when. And then we'll get to the grand finale where we remove the tenon and hopefully it sits upright. So that's the sequence. Let's get started. I'll just say, hit me with questions. I'm going to take my glasses off, put my safety glasses on, so I can't see so great, past about 10 feet. So just if you have a question or an insight or whatever, just shout it out, because I'm not going to be able to see you, at least, and identify you by name. I do want to pass around, I brought a few examples while I'm doing these first few steps. Some of the more recent stuff, I haven't even had a chance to sign these yet, so excuse me. So yeah, let's get to it. I know time is of the essence. So sometimes I go back and forth between dimensional lumber and raw timber. Of course, we're going to use a piece of maple today that looks obviously a piece of dimensional lumber that I cut in a cylinder on the bandsaw. We're going to put it on the lathe. I used to use a worm screw to secure these. I've stopped doing that because whether or not you're using dimensional lumber or raw timber, you always want to keep your options open in terms of grain orientation, how you want to position the piece. And I found that a couple of times I'd tap this thing, put the worm screw in, and then halfway through I'd say, oh man, I wish I would have made the top the bottom or the other way around, and then it's too late, right? You've already made that decision. So I don't do that anymore. I pin it between centers. I use a cup and point. This one has the bowl attachment, which gives me a little bit of extra security. Truth be told, I just can't get this damn thing off of here. It's like seized on, so I just leave it here. It's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. But a standard cup and point center will do just fine. And then I have a cup and point live center. This is the one that comes with the robust American Beauty, but any cup and point live center will do just fine. If I'm doing something big, or if I'm working with a log that has the bark still on, instead of the cup and point, I will use a fork prong. It just digs in a little bit better, it gives you more traction, but it does have that nasty side effect of starting to drill in the piece if it starts to spin. So on these pieces of dimensional lumber, I don't normally use that. If this starts spinning, I just get a little ring that's carved in instead of it drilling into the piece. So I've got this one all set up. I did, I hope, a relatively good job on the bandsaw. It's not going to be perfect, of course, but hopefully not too egregious. There we go.
Jeremiah, do
Sir.
you prefer to work with dried wood, or do you?
It's a great question, Dennis. I like dry wood. I mean, I'll go back and forth. Sometimes if you want some movement, I never twice turn. I don't have that kind of patience. I'm always afraid something's going to crack after I've already invested a couple hours into it. So I'm going to finish it whether it's dry or it's wet. If it's wet, I try to predict how it's going to move, and I'll try to lean into it a little bit. Of course, if you do it thin enough and the walls are consistent enough, you can mitigate a lot of that, at least the crazy movement, right? Unless that's what you want. If you want a lot of torque and torsion and stuff, you work with oak, great. But all things being equal, I prefer to work with dry wood just because it's predictable. So let's get this going about 1200. I'm gonna really crank this guy down. Just a little bit low. Bring this up a little bit. I'm just gonna true this up quickly. Crank this down. No magic here. This is just like you would any other piece. I don't like to use a roughing gouge. I just don't find it to be necessary. You get it reasonably round on the bandsaw. One pass with the gouge usually does the trick. And there we go. So now I want to put a tenon on this thing. First thing I want to do, I'm actually going to switch to my. I used to use the 3/8 for that. I'm going to switch to my 1/2 inch. This is my utility gouge. I use this for most of my shaping. Roughing the bigger pieces. So I'm going to make a tenon on this. First thing I want to do is I want to flatten this end out a little bit. Just a little bit irregular. You can hear it chattering. So I'm just going to flatten that out a little bit. Get nice and up close to that. There we go. Okay. I don't like to use the spindle lock here. I think sometimes it gives you a false sense of security. It'll still kind of come loose, or the tailstock will come loose a little bit. So when I have it pinned, I'm just always kind of cranking down on this thing to make sure it's nice and tight. What am I looking for? Ah, yes, my calipers. There are about 1,000 ways to mark out your tenon. I like the caliper way, where I kind of just split the difference here. Let one side ride until it lines up the other side, like so. If this is a little, if you get a little too crazy, it'll catch. It's not a big deal. It looks violent, but it's not a problem. And a lot of people have an aversion to that method. So if you like to use a pencil or if you have a jig, great. This is how I like to do it. And then I like to measure out my shoulder. So I have a tenon. I want it to sit on the shoulder. So this just kind of reminds me where to leave a little bit of extra material for that shoulder. Right now I'm going to take off enough material for both my shoulder and my tenon. So it's going to be pretty tall. But to where I marked that shoulder line. So maybe I'm going to do a lot of measuring in millimeters just because it's while I'm at the lathe and talking and trying to chew gum and walk at the same time, whole numbers are a little easier for me to remember than doing fractional math in my head. But I think I'll maybe 12 millimeters or so. Now I need to get a little, I'm going to start making the tenon, so I need to get a little bit more precise. I'm going to swap out my 1/2 inch for my 3/8 full gouge and my 3/8 spindle gouge. I'll drop this. I'll kind of split the difference. So now this is going to be the type of my tenon. And as I get closer to the final shape, I'm going to swap my full gouge for a spindle gouge, and I'm going to reposition this just a little bit, just to give me some more. I'm going to bring this up a little bit, just to give me a little bit more precision. I'm using a Vic Mark chuck, which has a pretty prominent dovetail, so I'm going to go ahead and start making that shape here. That'll work. And then I'm going to come in here, I'm going to undercut. You can go parallel if you want. You never want to have a convex shoulder. You always want it to be parallel or concave. Parallel is hard to nail, so I try to go a little bit concave. So I started with my flute at 90 degrees here, engage, and then I rotate it counterclockwise just a few degrees until it starts to cut. And then in we go. I'm just taking off a little bit here, just so that my tenon sits nice and flush. I also like to sort of countersink this. The main issue I find that I have when I'm trying to, if a tenon's not sitting right, is I have a little bead of material kind of in the crease where the shoulder meets the tenon. So I'll go a little bit past bottom, just sort of countersink that, make a little groove there, so I know no material is going to get in the way. So now we have our tenon. So hopefully that's not too foreign. While I'm here, I'm going to start rounding off. Let's actually stop the lathe for a second. This is where I would stop the lathe, as I just did, and I'm going to look at grain. I'm going to say, okay, before I do anything else, is this what I want? Because I could still flip this around. This could still be the spout of my hollow form. I could just do a little tenon on this side. I haven't made any irreversible decisions here. So this is fine for all intents and purposes, right? It's just a pretty standard piece of maple, but if it were a burl or something more, had more character, I can decide what I'm going to do here. Okay. Just takes this out. All right, we're going to come in here and just treat it up a little bit. There we go. Good. Again, countersink that. Just to make sure we don't have anything preventing a nice flush tendon grab. And then, where I got off track. What I like to do when I'm here is I like to take a little bit off of this vessel, just because when the chuck's in the way, it can be kind of a pain. So while I'm here, I'm not going to take off so much material that I'm making a design decision per se. It's just kind of getting some what I know is going to be excess out of the way, so that I don't have to worry about it when I flip this thing around. So I'm just going to round the back off here. Nothing too crazy. Again, I don't want to make any design decisions here. That would be good. Okay, cool. So now we have our tenon, we have our cylinder. Let's go ahead and flip it around and start shaping this thing. So I'm going to use this knockout bar. Just kind of push this thing out of here. Good deal. And then, yeah, this chuck, which is this is way more than I need for this thing, but better to have too much than not enough, I guess, when it comes to grabbing strength. Slip this in here. Nothing revolutionary here, right? This is all pretty, I think, stock and trade kind of tenon making, truing up. But now this is where rubber meets the road. We're gonna start shaping this thing. Shaping this vessel is the most important part of the step in this process, right? There are a lot of characteristics that we use to sort of qualify how good a hollow form is, and this, like size of the opening, how thin are the walls, how balanced is it, what kind of wood is it, what kind of finish does it have, is it textured? None of that matters if the shape is poor, right? It needs to have a beautiful shape. Everything else is secondary to that. So this step is the most important step of this entire process. At home, we don't have the luxury of time here, but at home I'll spend an hour, sometimes longer, dialing in the shape. I'll walk away and then come back to see if I've changed my mind about it, just to kind of give me some fresh eyes. I can't stress enough, not just for hollow forms, but any vessel, establishing the shape is the most critical step. So we're gonna try to do a relatively good job here in a very limited amount of time, but just know that don't cut any corners. If you're doing this at home, this is a critical step. And just I'm not a production turner, so I'll take however long I need to take to make sure this is good. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm just gonna true up this front face. Let's get this speed up a little bit. Okay. I'm just using the top corner of my gouge here. I don't want to use the wing just yet. This is a little bit high right now. Let me drop that. Okay, take that top corner, run it along the face of this thing. You hear it chattering, so I'm trying to just get it all nice and level. There we go. Okay, so there's a couple things that I need to do here. I think of this as a 4-step process. I need to reserve real estate for the rim. I like my vessels. I like to have an upturned spout. And I'm knowing myself and how in the past, if I don't mark that out and save space for that, I end up making a nice fluid shape, and then I forget about the spout, and then I end up with either a really stubby spout or no spout at all, which is not my goal. So first step is to, again, reserve that real estate. So I'm just gonna tilt this down. I don't want to go all the way to the final width of the opening of my hollow form, but I want to get relatively close. This is probably okay. The reason I'm leaving extra material here is that once you start hollowing, especially when the top half of this becomes hollowed, that rim is going to be the primary point of failure. If you get a catch, if you get caught up in some shavings and your tool starts rattling around, the first thing that's going to blow out is probably going to be the rim. So the more meat you leave up here, the greater the likelihood that it'll survive any sort of little bumps and bruises and that kind of thing. So, and we'll come back and we'll refine it, but I'm going to leave a little bit of material there. So that's the first step. Step 2 is I'm going to start shaping this top corner. Now, there are a lot of different ways to approach shape, right, depending on what you want. In some of the examples that I showed you for like my inspiration pieces and my pieces, there's a big variation in shape. One of the things that I like to do for my demos is I like to do like more of a Grecian shape, a classic, where it's what I'll call it a feminine shape, where you have, it's like, you guys can see the pieces I'm passing around. the widest point of the vessel is just above center. You know, a lot of people try to go with that like top third. That's a very strong shoulder, very masculine shape. I don't love that silhouette. It's also extremely hard to hollow, and I'll talk about why that is when we get there. But that flat, almost parallel to the ground shoulder, it's you're gonna have a rough day and at the lathe if you're hollowing that out, especially if you don't have the right tools. I like to do a little bit more of a feminine shape where we have that lower shoulder. So I'm going to kind of mark out, like I'm going to say this is probably about, like with the rim included, that's probably about halfway, maybe a little above halfway. So let's say that's halfway. I want my shoulder, the widest part of my shoulder to kind of be somewhere in this shaded area right here. I'm going to give myself a little bit of grace, right? I'm going to let this sort of take shape organically, but that's where I'm going to target that shoulder. Maybe a little higher, but that's a good place to index for now. I'm going to move this up just a tad. Okay, so now I'm going to knock this shoulder off. I don't do a lot of push cuts. I mean, you could, nothing against it, but I do a lot of my preliminary, and I will come back through with a push cut to clean things up a little bit, but all my shaping, I'm doing these sort of shearing pull cuts. One, I find that it gives me, I have a lot of control when I'm doing this, and I don't, at the push cut, I kind of have to, especially with this 65-degree bevel, excuse me. Once I start, I have to kind of walk it around the lathe, and it's just kind of tough for me to do a nice fluid cut. This guy, I can just come over here, just lean a little bit, rotate my body, and I can wrap this around. And I'm getting a pretty good cut. If I turn this lathe off, I mean, you can see there's some tool marks, but I mean, it's not bad. It's not a bad surface. This is a softer maple, so I'm getting a little tear on the end grain. Nothing we can't fix pretty easily, though. Let's turn it back on. Come on. And then, so I just keep kind of doing this, and I'll take a little bit off this. This is way more than I need for the rim, actually. So I'm going to kind of move this out, bring it around. Ooh, it's fine. Okay. I'm not mad at it. It's an iterative process. I'm not taking off a lot. You can see they're pretty fine shavings, but it lets me really dial this shape in. And as I start to get to this shaded area, that's when I'm going to turn that corner. And so you'll notice I'm not going all the way down to the bottom. You could if you wanted to, especially if you're doing a push cut and you had the right bevel angle and you wanted to kind of walk it all the way over. Nothing, no reason you couldn't do that. It's not how I like to approach it, because I like to take it down to this widest point. We're almost there. Kind of walk this around. There we go. And now I'm going to go to step 3, which is shaping the base. And then once I have the base shaped, then I'm going to blend them. That's the 4th step. So I'm just going to come up here. I'm being very careful. And now I'm going to get a little more aggressive here. I'm going to use the wing of my tool to start hogging off material. And I want this to be a little bit more svelte. This is going to have a shallower angle. Turn this down here. A little bit low too. Let me bring this up a little bit. Let me turn this off before I do something silly. Come on, man. And then I'm just going to inch this guy up here. All right, now we're back in business, I think. There we go. And I'm just going to kind of shape this and blend it, bring it up here. Now, I'm not going to do the final, like I said, I've got a really small base. The base is typically about a 1/2 inch as well to match the rim. I'm not going to get to it here for a couple of reasons, right? One is the chuck's in my way. It's just too much. I can't get in there and do it well. The second reason is when I start hollowing this, I need a lot of material down here so that I have structural integrity when that torque starts getting applied inside the vessel as I hollow. So I want to leave a lot of material inside the vessel, or the base of the vessel, at least until I'm almost done hollowing the top 2/3. But I will kind of come in a little bit more here. Now it's almost starting to look like what might be a hull form one day. And this is where I'm going to start. And I'll come in a little bit more here, just so I can visualize it better. But I'm just going to, it's not quite a shear scrape. You can see, I mean, I have my flute wide open. If you're not comfortable with this, you could definitely shear scrape. I just find that when I have this open at this height on the vessel, I get a nice slicing cut, and it usually leaves a pretty clean surface. So But yeah, it's not maybe not for beginners, but that's how I like to do it. Again, you could also do a push cut. And I'm going to do a couple of push cuts here just to smooth this out, because that will give you the best surface typically. So now you can see I still have that shaded area. This is where I need to blend the top and the bottom. So I'm going to come over here. I'm just going to start kind of working my way down here. As I'm doing this cut, I try to keep it on the top corner of the flute, of the cutting surface. If I come down too far on the wing, I'll get a lot of chatter. It'll turn into a shear scrape at some point, but then when I turn this corner, sometimes I get a little bit of chatter. It's actually working for me really well right now, so I'm not going to complain. But I like to use that top corner. Oops, I hit the emergency. It works. And then, so I just kind of go switch back and forth. Kind of just smooth this out a little bit. And then back around the other way. And now we're cooking with gas switch. This is great. And again, I will sit it. This is a pretty small vessel, so it wouldn't take me that long. But I would spend a lot more time looking at this from the side. I don't like to take it off the blade. I'll just kind of look at it. You can see right now, it's got kind of a point right here. If you can, I don't know if you can see it on the top profile. Actually, can we go back to the top? It's probably easier to see on that profile. You can see right through here is a little bit of a point. I'd want to smooth that out. I don't want any. I like to think if I were driving on this road, if this curve was a road and I was driving on it, I could go pretty fast and not fly off. Right now, I feel like this is a little bit too sharp of an angle, and my car would go flying off this thing. So I need to just make it a little bit more shallow. Let's just swing this in here a little bit. This is where I just kind of, now I will do a little bit of shear scraping here. I'll drop this handle a little bit. We'll just roll this over. And then we'll call that pretty much good here. I'm not gonna labor too much over this. Hopefully you get the idea. But proportions are really important, right? Knowing where you want the widest part to be. If it's too low, then you'll have a very bottom heavy vessel. It'll look heavy. It'll sit on the table very heavily. Maybe that's what you want. But if you want a really masculine shape and it's really high off the table, then you want a little bit higher. You're also going to have to sort of contend with the width of your base and the width of your rim, sort of how do those balance out with this. So there's a lot of design decisions to be made here. A lot of it's just trial and error, making forms, finishing it, bring it through to the end, and then sitting back and saying, like, what do I like, what don't I like, doing that sort of self-critique, getting feedback from other folks who have more experience, whose work you admire. Those are great ways to sort of dial in your design skills. So I'm going to do one more push cut with this 3/8, just to kind of, my surface is actually pretty good, but I'm going to prove you that I know how to do a push cut. And here I'm just tools against my body. I'm rotating the tool inward. I want to turn this under. That's the other thing. I like to have my hollow forms. I want the base to be almost invisible. I want it to sort of disappear under the vessel before you can see the bottom of it, before you see it meet the table. So I'm going to have to tuck this under. I haven't really done that well here. So I'm going to, now we can come to the other side. And we're just going to, okay, so this is about as narrow as I want to make this base before I hollow it. Any narrower and I'd be a little bit worried about the structural integrity of it. I'm just going to straighten this a little bit. Can't help myself. So that's a rough shape. I mean, there's a lot of things I don't like about it. I take a little bit more material off here. Make this a little bit more svelte. But here we go. Okay. So that's about as much as I'd want to do before hollowing it. I feel good about the material left down there. I feel like we're safe to hollow. We're not going to have it fly off, or rapid unplanned disassembly here at the small point. So yeah, now we're ready to hollow. So I'm going to go. But yeah, my 2 points. When in addition to just thinking about the shape very thoughtfully and making good design decisions, and trying and failing and figuring out what you like and don't like, the 2 points I would make is leave meat at the rim because you're going to need that support when you're hollowing it out, and leave meat at the base because you need that structural integrity while you're hollowing. And we're going to come back later and fix both those things and dial them in. Okay, so now we're going to start hollowing. And I'm gonna have to ride this pony a little bit. Hope you guys don't mind. Little circus facility. I could try to hollow out here. It's just dicey. I don't love it. I like to have the tool right in on my waist and just part like almost an extension of my body. Before we hollow, let me kind of show you what I'm working with here. There are no shortage of hollowing tools. So what we're going to be using today are this is a straight tool. Where's the thing? You guys can see this. Straight tool with a carbide cutter. You guys see this? Straight tool, carbide cutter. This is from the Joukowsky Hollow Pro line. I love these carbide cutters. They're super aggressive. They remove a lot of material very quickly, and you don't have to sharpen them. It's a two tool set. This is the bent tool version of it. You can see the carbide cutter there. And then I use a lot of homemade tools. We're going to do everything today with these two plus a couple of specialty tools that I brought. I'll dig them out of my bag when the time comes. But Dennis was asking me, how do you get in the base or right inside the rim? So I have this little tiny hunter tool, also has a carbide cutter on it, that lets me get right inside the base. But here's a bevy of tools. These are all homemade. They all have high-speed steel tips. So you might ask me, what do you need all this stuff for? This looks crazy. So as you start to experiment with different shapes, there are going to be two things that limit the effectiveness of these off-the-shelf tools. One is, as the mouth gets smaller, the range of motion is limited on these, and you're not going to be able to get to where you need to get to have a nice, thin, consistent wall all the way through. Also, as the vessel gets larger, you're going to have a hard time reaching, and you're going to be limited. So you have to start making tools. And this is a piece I made, I don't know, maybe a year ago, before I started making my own tools. I finished it. It's a piece of cherry. I was pretty happy with it, but I knew it was top heavy, and I was really disappointed. I loved the way it looked, but when you picked it up, you could tell the balance was off. So I sacrificed this one to the holoform gods to see like what was going on inside. And I think it's actually a good sort of demonstration of the limitations. So these off-the-shelf tools, you can see I'm coming in here, but once I get through here, I can't reach anymore, right? I either have to make a smaller vessel, which is, I mean, the ship has sailed at that point, or I got to open up the walls so I can have more range of motion. So what do? You start making your own tools. Now, like this guy, this is actually an Ellsworth tool that I bought and modified, but these are all just 3/8 inch tool steel that I drilled on the lathe with a carbide drill, and I bent them in a rebar bender to the length and the angle that I needed. So I can take this modified Ellsworth tool, and now I can do a 1/8 inch wall if I want, all the way to the rim, with the help of this little guy here. This guy will do the rest of the hard work. But then as I get wider, like I said, as it gets wider, I can't reach this corner. I can't really do a vessel that's wider than maybe 3 or 4 inches with this tool. So I need to make a bent tool. Now where this modified Ellsworth tool stops working, this homemade tool, I'll call it a medium bend tool, starts working. Now I can get all the way down through here. You'll notice these are off axis, right? These are not gooseneck where it comes back and aligns with the shaft. That makes it a lot easier to use, but you got to do what you got to do, right? Again, I can't use a gooseneck tool here. So you'll get a lot more torque, rotational torque on this. It'll test your grip strength a little bit. And a lot of folks, when they're using these off-center hollowing tools, like to put them in like a capture system, a stabilizer or whatever. That's great. I don't have anything against them. I don't like to use them. I like freehand hollowing. I enjoy the process. It's hard. I'm sure a day will come when I'm like, yeah, it's too hard. I don't want to do that anymore. But it hasn't come yet. So, but yeah, and as it gets longer, so I had like an 11-inch vessel I did a while back, and this guy, this gets a little wild, right? I mean, I'm two-handed, white knuckling it, and I'm going really slow, taking light passes. That's the key. Like, don't rush. You can't rush hollowing. Hollowing is a slow process, very deliberate, very thoughtful, very careful.
Chairman,
Sir.
You don't use any handles at all on those?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, I couldn't hold on to that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got these little carny hands. There's no way I can hold on to that thing. So I like the Hoslick handles, and I like the one way. One way are pretty heavy. I'll use these if I need a little bit more mass, like I'm doing a big vessel, and I don't know how much it helps, but it makes me feel better. And the Hoslick tools are just great. They're pretty light. I think the grip is really comfortable. So those are the two I use mostly. Okay, so let's get all the stuff that don't need out of here. But so I need to, before I do any hollowing, there's a couple of things I need to do to prepare. I like to drill to depth and then prep the hole so that I can actually get a hollowing tool in there, right? The 3/8 is small, but it's not that small. So I'm going to take this guy. I'm just going to pick my one way just for the heck of it. And then a little Allen wrench here. Oh, first, I'm skipping a very crucial step. I like to, before I use this this drill bit, I'll take my 3/8, or my, yeah, I'm sorry, what is this? 1/4 inch, my 1/4 inch bowl gouge. And I like to make a little sort of a, I like to start this a little bit. Kind of make a little, what do you call it? Yeah. So I'll come in here, just, yeah. There we go. And this will help me, this will make drilling this out a lot easier. I'm going to turn this way down when I drill too. I don't need to really going that fast. So I'm going to drill, not totally to depth, but mostly. I'm going to get most of the way there. If you've ever made a hollow form before, you know that a lot of times you end up with a little nub at the bottom. And then you chase that nub, and then you end up going 2 inches deeper than you thought you were going to do to try to get that nub out of there. So I know I'm going to do that to some extent, right? Even if it's not 2 inches, but maybe 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch. So I never drill all the way to the final depth. I'm going to, just to help me visualize this, I'm going to just kind of, actually, let me swap this out. Getting a, so I told you guys I have a little bit of a method to sort of mitigate some of the boredom that comes with blind hollowing demos. What I like to do, because I do those extreme void pieces I showed you earlier, I pre-turned this one and I took it to the bandsaw and I cut, I don't know, 1/3 of it, maybe a little more of 1/3 of it off. So this is what we're going to hollow today. So it does a couple of things. You can actually see the tool while it's hollowing. Once I bust through this material, it also alleviates the need for any sort of compressed air or evacuation of the shavings. It'll sort of self-vent for obvious reasons. So we're going to swap that out here, and I'll drill that one instead of the one that's on there currently. So this guy can go to the side to be finished at some point in the future. We'll put this guy on. And now I gotta re-drill that little spot. Let me get my 1/4 inch back out. Well, do the same thing we just did. I just got a little ahead of myself. This is also the time if I felt like the spout was maybe too high. Sometimes you'll think, oh, the shape's not right. I got to redo the shoulder, and I'll take off a little bit more material, and then you'll have this really high spout. The height of the spout will also affect how well you can get in there with the tools. So this is a good time to take off any extra height. But this is actually kind of a nice height for me right now. So I'm going to just leave that. I'll make this opening a little bit bigger than I normally would, just to be kind to myself. And also help things go a little bit more quickly. To the side. Oh, I also kind of want to mark out where the bottom of this thing's going to be, so I have target when I'm drilling. This is going a little bit too fast. I'm getting a little bit of wobble. It's not a symmetrical vessel, so it's to be expected. But I'm going to let the final, maybe right here. That's going to be the final depth. So I don't want to go all the way there yet. I'm going to get my, let me stop, get my Allen wrench. I'm just going to eyeball this. So where do I want, where's my line? My line's right at the crease here, so right here. I'm just going to come here and say, let's drill to right about there. That'll give me enough depth that it makes my hollowing a little bit easier, right? Even though everything's rotating at the same rate, it's rotating more slowly towards the center, right? It becomes harder to hollow. Just like when you're hollowing in the middle of a bowl, right? As you get to the bottom, it's moving more slowly, and it can be tougher to remove that material. Same thing happens here. So I'm going to drill most of that material out, which helps me make my life a little bit easier. We'll fire this back up. And now, I don't know what type of bit this is, so you have to forgive me, but I've used a couple of different types of drill bits. I find this one with the two like sort of prongs on it. I don't know if you all can see that. This one has like those two prongs. What's it called? Yes, thank you. This works well. If I have like the rounded one, it'll wander on me a little bit. This type is much more conducive to drilling this out. I want the lathe moving pretty slowly. No reason to be in a rush here. Normally I'd be off the end of the lathe. I'm going to do my best to kind of make this work here. I'm just going to approach this slowly. There we go. Clear the shavings. Go back in. There we go. Awesome. That wasn't too hard. And now I'm going to get my 1/4-inch bowl gouge back out. And this is where I'm going to establish the hole through which I'm going to drill. So now I have a 3/8-inch hole. I have a 3/8-inch diameter on the shaft of the tool. It's going to be too tight. I got to give myself a little more room to work. Normally I'll take just enough to get that tool in there. Maybe I'll go whatever it is, 5/16 or whatever the next iteration up is. Like I said, I'm going to go a little wider this time just to make things a little bit easier for me. But I'm going to crank the speed back up. When I do this, I like to come from underneath a little bit. I find if I come straight on, I get a lot of walking, right? Even if I close the flute all the way, it'll still skate on me a little bit. So if I come in from underneath a little bit, I find that will help. Let's see, famous last words. So again, I have my flute closed. Once I start to catch, or once I start to see the material coming off, I'll rotate it counterclockwise and come back in. I'm going to give it a little more speed here. I'm going to go a little bit wider here. So that's probably 1/2 inch. And it'll get bigger. I'll true it up once we're done to take care of any defects. So it'll probably end up being about, I don't know, 9/16, which is a little bit bigger than I would normally go. But that's what we're going to work with today. Now we start hollowing, y'all. I'm going to position this tool rest right underneath. I want the bottom of the tool rest to be just above the hole, right? So this is a small hole. I don't have a lot of clearance, but I definitely don't want this tool riding on the bottom of that opening, dinging it up and creating burnish marks and all that kind of stuff. So take my straight tool, my Hollow Pro straight tool with the carbide cutter, and let me stop this just to be safe. I'm just going to eyeball it. Again, kind of to the same point where I drilled, maybe a little bit deeper. That's all. I want this to be, I use these two set screws as sort of the my guide for when it's facing straight up. I like to rotate the tool a little bit counterclockwise. I don't want that carbide cutter to be parallel to the ground. I want it to be a little skewed counterclockwise. And I'll just, since the set screws will make it do interesting things, but I'll just crank it down here. And now we start hollowing. So, yeah, we drilled the depth. So now I'm going to just create more space. When you first start drilling, the imperative is to make space for those shavings to collect. Right now, as I start making shavings, they have nowhere to go. It's such a tight space in there. So I just need to make some more space. So we'll crank this back up, maybe. I like to hollow. I'm not super, I don't have a digital readout on my lathe. It's variable speed, but I don't have digital. So I'm not super cognizant of RPMs, but I'd say probably 1,000 to 1,200 is the range I like to hollow typically. We've got about 1,260 right now. So I'm going to rotate this handle this way. And I'm just going to come in here. Especially if you've never used these tools before, you got to approach it really slowly. So it'll grab, and it's kind of jarring if you're not used to it. So I'm just going to approach it. You can hear it. There we go. Put a little bit of forward pressure. Again, I'm barely cutting and I'm already getting clogged up with shavings. So I'm going to grab this little Amazon thing here. I'll be using that on a regular basis, at least for the first few minutes. I just want to go. I want to bottom this tool out on the rest. That's my goal. I'm trying to do that if I can avoid it, but blow it. Okay. Yep. We're almost there. Good. Okay. So we brought the tool all the way to the rest. That's as deep as we want to go. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to continue on with the straight tool, but I'm going to rotate it outward a little bit. I want to scoop a little bit more out laterally. Again, just creating space. See my angle changes a little bit. Yeah. See how it kind of caught when I pulled it out? It's because there's too many shavings. I got too aggressive in there. We're not working with a lot of space right now, and it's going to get real tight real quick. Good.
Does that tool bar have a flat on it?
No, this is completely round.
So when you're talking about what, the cutter itself,
Yeah.
you're holding it slightly,
Yeah, so I have these two set screws. That's how I know it's kind of facing straight up. So when I'm cutting, when I tighten it in, I don't know if you can see it straight on here.
okay, so it's a visual reference to the screws.
Yes, exactly right.
Okay, so, but it is slightly,
Slightly, by default. So I know when these are straight up, this is maybe tilted maybe 10 degrees to the right, but that just helps me I always like to have this tilted into the cut, right? So if I'm pushing this way, I want it tilted counterclockwise. After I turn the corner, I tilt it clockwise because I want the tilt to be in the direction of the cut with these cutters. And I think it applies to HSS too. If I try to cut this way with this tool rotated, it's really aggressive. I have this edge just sticking straight up in the air, and it's gonna not catch maybe, but it's gonna be a really rough ride for me.
I've got one of those cutters, that's why I was asking, and it will grab and bite quickly.
Yeah, it's like when I turn that corner, if I rotate it in and rotate it towards the direction of the cut, that'll help quite a bit. It'll be a much softer engagement with the material. So yeah, we're just gonna clear out some more room. Hopefully at some point, I see some shavings in my out here. Okay, so now we're gonna. Dennis was asking me, how do you get inside here, right? This is, in my opinion, I don't think you get much of a debate from most hollow form turners. This area right here, where it comes in and turns away, is the hardest part to hollow, right? You're kind of, depending on how aggressive or how flat this top is, this top shoulder, sometimes you're trying to hollow 180 degrees, right? Which, I mean, come on, it's no easy feat. So there's a couple of ways to do it. Some folks will take Allen wrenches and file them down. Not my favorite technique. I mean, it's definitely the most cost effective, but these little hollowers, I think these are 3/8 from 100 joules, are awesome. And I use these a lot for almost exclusively for that top corner. So it's a gooseneck, so cutters maybe a little bit farther out, but more or less aligned with the shaft. So you're not going to get a lot of rotational torque. But I'm gonna maybe I should pull this out real quick. Cool. So now it's important when you're using these gooseneck cutters. The bottom of the gooseneck needs to be over the rest. If I try to hollow here, it's going to flip this tool around and we're going to get a catch, right? So I need to back the tool rest up a little bit. give myself enough room to get over here. Cool. So I'm over the hump. And then we're gonna come in here. And basically what I do, you can't really see it, but I'm gonna, hey Charlie, or I'm sorry, Tim, can we get a side-on view just for this one part? Yeah, cool. That's great, great. And I'm also, not only am I moving material here, but I'm also kind of determining where my wall is going to start. So I'm looking into this hole here. Let me turn this light on a little bit and you can see. There we go. You can kind of see in that vessel. Where do I want it to turn in? Where do I want the hollowing to start? I don't want it too low because I want a nice thin wall. So I'm going to come right about here. All I'm doing is rotating them. There's no forward movement on the vessel. I'm just pinning it and rotating it in like this. Come back in. Now, when my tool handle gets parallel to the lathe bed, then I'm going to do some forward pressure. And what I actually like to do is I like to go in and scoop. There we go. And scoop. Should do one more pass here. Okay. Maybe it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you're hollowing through a very small hole like this, as you enter the vessel and exit the vessel, you gotta be super careful, right? One little catch, and you're done. Like it'll rip this whole rim right out. That's your most often case scenario. So at best case, you just get a little bit of a ding, and you got to fix it. Now you have a much larger hole than you intended. But now it's starting to self vent. That's good news. But you can see. You can see kind of, so you can see I'm kind of starting to remove this material here. But I made a little pocket for these shavings to start collecting. So I'm going to be able to be more productive in here. I don't have to be so delicate and to blow those shavings out so often. Well, not anymore, of course. But so I'm going to switch to my bent tool. If I can find it. Where did I put it? There it is, right where I left it. Okay, so just like with the straight tool, I have it on a little bit of an angle. I don't know if you can see it here very well, but I have it slightly counterclockwise. Again, maybe 5 or 10 degrees. Same thing applies with this gooseneck. It's a much longer gooseneck, so I got to give myself a little bit more space. Go back a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. Let me go ahead and swap this. We just did this. We just carved out a little bit more.
You want to switch to that?
And now here we started this with this scooping out. We started with the that smaller hunter tool. Now I'm going to do this with the Tchaikovsky Hollow Pro tool. Very similar to what we were just doing. I'm just doing a little bit broader sweeps. So I'm coming in here. I'm going to come in nice and easy. I'm listening for the tool to engage the material. Sorry, y'all. We're going to get a real show here today. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to listen real closely for this to make contact. And when it does, I'm just going to ease it forward. There we go. Now we're coming in. Can you see it in there? Maybe not. And I'm just taking out little bits. Okay. Oh, this is something I want to show you all. See that sharp shoulder there? That's a great way to get a catch. If I'm coming through with my gouge, if that shoulder is too sharp, it'll start catching the outside of my cutting tip, and it'll overwhelm the tool, and then all of a sudden I get a massive catch. So what I like to do there, and then we can go back to the top down. So you can actually see it in here a little bit, maybe not quite yet, but right here, I have a ledge. It's all hollowed out here, and then right here, I have the ledge. So I'm gonna bring my, my straight tool back out, and we're gonna fix that. We're gonna knock that down.
And I really appreciate that you've cut that off where we can see it. I don't know about the rest of you. Yeah, I've never seen that done before, and it really brings it home.
It's, after doing 2 or 3 hollow form demos and seeing everybody just kind of being like, okay, whatever, man, trying to like paint the picture with my words, I figured I got to do something different. So there we go. Okay, so now I've kind of smoothed that out. Oops. Let's see if we can see it. Okay. As you can see here, oh, you can kind of see it now. I still got a pretty big edge there, so I'm going to take some more out. Let's get these chips out of here. But I have to, I want to smooth this out. I do not want this big ledge here. That's going to, what's going to happen is that the tool's going to come in here, and I'm going to get a catch right in this little crease. So I'm going to try to get rid of that. But I don't want to take out too much material because I'm going to come down and I got to refine the shape, right? This is way too fat of a base. I'm going to bring that shape in, so I don't want to get too thin. You can actually kind of see it in there now. Good. Good. Okay. That should be enough to go all in with the bent tool. It's going to be a little rough, I think, in the surface quality, but that's okay. Yeah, there's some little humps there we got to work out, but that's part of the game. One thing that I haven't talked about yet, I'm going to rotate this, hopefully you can see it. There's a little bit of a bump right through here where that little tiny hunter bent tool I was using stopped reaching. I hit the sort of I bottomed out on the tool rest, but I want to take more off. So what I do, to the ire of a lot of self-important hollow form turners, is I break out one of these easy wood tools, and this thing looks great for getting in here. Come in here. Make contact, and I'm just going to rotate the corner. There we go. Okay. Where are we going?
I got a question.
Please, yeah, cut it out.
Very easy to see the thickness of your walls.
Oh, yeah, you tell all my secrets now.
My question is,
Yeah.
you got a solid piece, what is your method of gauging the thickness of your wall?
That's a great question. It's probably, it might be the most important question you can ask in this situation, right? That's because you're right. 99% of the time, I can't see what's going on here. So how do you tell? Mike Joukowsky makes a great tool for this. Basically, what happens is you put it's kind of shaped like a hollow form, not unintentionally. What you can do is you put it in here, and the distance between this fat knob and the blue part is your wall depth, right? So you come in here, and I can kind of put it like that, and I can see, oh, I got a lot of material here versus not a lot of material here, and I can kind of run it up and down the piece and kind of see the wall differential. However, what if I want to measure this? This is, again, the hardest part to hollow and definitely the hardest part to measure. Then you got to get creative and you got to start making these really ugly homemade tools like this guy. And what I do is, got to find this dang ruler that I had. Oh, here it is. It's right where I left it. So what I do is I bend this so that I know, again, I'm working in mils here just so it's easy for me to do math. I know this is 30 millimeters between this and this part right here. Boom. So then what I do is I slide this little guy in here, like that. And then I say, okay, how much? It's measuring out to 20. So I know I have 10 millimeters worth of material, right? That's how I measure the top part. And then I have a slightly bigger tool, again, 30 mil between two sections. This is kind of does what the Jaramiah tool does, but it's way more dynamic. I don't run into little blind spots where the tool won't fit. I do the same thing. Okay, here I have, I'm 11 mil in. I have to take 18, 15 mil off if I want a really thin vessel. Oh, and now I have a bump here. I can kind of see it. I can feel it for sure. But even if I couldn't, I can see the depth, the difference. It goes from 10 to 5 to 10 to 5 to 10. So that's how I would measure it, these kind of tools. And when I'm doing this and I can't see, I kind of know when I'm getting within like a 1/4 inch maybe. That's when I'm measuring every minute or 2 minutes. Every cut, I'm going to go back in and say, okay, I was hoping to take a mil off there or 2 mil there. Let me go back and do another cut. Okay, I do the cut, I come back and I measure again. It's just, that's the game. It's measuring and measuring and measuring. These are super easy to make. I know some people have like 5 or 6 different shapes. I find these 3 tools here, the Jaramiah one paired with these 2, is all I need. I can measure every angle on this vessel. And I haven't made a vessel, various shapes and so forth, that these didn't work really well for me.
Home Depot has 1/8 zinc coated rod,
Yes.
3 feet long, and they're cheap. That's what I've made all of mine out of.
Yep.
Same.
I think that's what this guy is maybe.
Yeah, that's what David told us to buy.
Yep. Yeah. Just for full disclosure, I did not come up with this method, right? This is a David Ellsworth kind of technique. So again, I'm stealing that ruthlessly. And shingles. So, but it's a good question. And it gets when you're doing it like right now, it's like, oh, it's really easy to tell. But measuring is a critical part of this process. And you have to do it a lot. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to bring this in a little bit. I don't quite need all that distance. I'm getting a little deeper in the vessel now. Throw a little over here. Yeah, coming in. I like to ground my hand here, just to give me a lot of control. I'm coming around the corner. I'm listening to when I make contact. I can hear it rubbing. I don't want, you hear that? I don't want that. That means the tool is rubbing against the rim, and that's not what I want. Best case is that it burnishes it. Worst case is that it'll split it, and I've definitely split rims doing that. Sometimes you can't help it though. Now I'm just coming through. I have a little high spot here I saw that I want to take care of. Come back through. Something's not quite right here. I think this rest might be the wrong height, maybe. I have a hard time. No, it's okay. Just gonna try this again. Come through here. Wish my legs were longer. Yeah. Look, I'm trying to ride this curve. Oh, now I'm bottoming out on the rest. So it's okay. Let's finish the top half first. Sort of acceptable. Probably, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch, maybe 1/2 inch. Not ideal. I'm gonna actually break out that easy wood tool again because it's really easy to use in this configuration. I got a little bump right here. Now, the nice thing about making these little tiny openings is that people can't stick their finger in and see where you messed up, where you have little bumps, but there's a pride element for me, and you can't see this one, so I'm gonna come back in here and smooth it out. But then we're gonna probably call this good for the sake of time, and I'll go down to the bottom head for this vessel. Come back through here. Path here. A lot of downward pressure with my hand here. I'm sort of, my hand's acting as a stabilizer. Yeah, we're getting pretty thin. I'm trying a little deeper with this, but I'm kind of hitting the limits of this tool. Okay, that's about as deep as I want to go with that tool. I'll get the bend tool out and we'll work past that, and then we're gonna cut bait on this part, and we're gonna go refine the bottom. Bring this in a little bit. Now we're gonna come back in again, nice and gentle, like get that bent part over the rest before I engage anything. Good. Now we pick up where we left off. Most of my cuts are push cuts here, but I will stop every once in a while and just kind of clean stuff up, right? If I feel follow this around, get a little squirrely on it, okay? I just come back and sort of refine it a little bit. Good. Okay, so that's as much as we're going to do for the top half. I think it's probably not the thinnest thing I've ever made, but you know, we're getting there. It's not too bad. Unsurprisingly, it's fat in the right through the shoulder. This is notoriously the hardest part to get, right? It's the farthest away from the rim. So we can come back in here. I'm a glutton for punishment, so let's go ahead. Why not? One more pass. Sure. My grandfather used to be a big NASCAR fan, and he used to say, "Some people come for the race, some people come for the crash." I don't know what you're here for today, but let's see what we can do. Okay. There we go. Good deal. Okay. So now, like I said before, I left a lot of meat down here, right? Because we're putting a lot of stress. Okay, it's a little thicker than I want, but we gotta move on. Normally I'd keep going through here until we had a nice consistent thickness through here. I will say I like to have a tapered thickness. I want it a little bit thicker in the base so it sits really nice. And with the way I tuck these vessels under, usually if they're a little bit heavier in the bottom, they'll self-right. So if you tip them over, they'll kind of rock back and find its foot. If it's heavier on the top, that's not going to happen. I've made some vessels that were reluctantly not. They met that criteria, unfortunately. But while I still have some material down here, I want to come back and refine this shape. So I'm happy, or I'm comfortable going a little bit thinner here. I don't need all the. I've done the hard work. This is where all the real torque is happening. Down here, it's not. I'm pretty close to the base. It's not going to be as stressful for the wood. So I'm going to bring this in a little bit. This is also kind of an advanced move here. I'm pretending this is a full piece. If it were this big, you don't normally want to take a gouge or something with this much material missing, but I'm going to.
Jeremiah,
Sir.
some of the guys use the light source into the incandescent.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried that?
Yeah. It works great for wet wood.
Oh,
For dry wood,
that's right. Yeah.
can't see so great unless it's super thin, and I don't want it to be that thin down here. Once I start seeing yellow or orange, it's too thin. It's one of the lessons I've learned recently is you hit diminishing returns pretty quickly, right? It's bragging rights only. That vessel is going to just flop around on the table because there's no mass to it, and that's no good. Okay, here we go. Hold on, y'all. I'm going to move a little bit of material down here. Give me some fruit, give me some room. All right, let's start right here. Get that bell run. There we go. Wow, damn! I keep hitting this emergency stop.
It's always good to test these.
If there's an emergency, we're going to be good to go. Okay. All right, so we're done. Good. Let's see what we want to pass here. So my shape's a little bit off. My widest point is kind of dropped a little bit, so I'm going to kind of come back through here and just shave a little bit off of here. Again, I'm going to try to tuck this under a little bit. And just kind of shear it straight with this. Good deal. Okay, now I'm going to come back through and we're going to finish that base, or the bottom of the vessel. Excuse me. Here we go. So you can kind of, I don't know, you can't really see it here, but I have maybe a quarter of an inch till I get to the bottom of where I first drilled. You can tell, but I want to go about another inch, which is fine. I just have to adjust my gouge. I want to see too if I can reach with my straight tool, if I'm going to have to bring the bent tool back out. Let's see if I can get this meaty part with the straight tool. But to this gentleman's point, I can't stress this enough. You will be measuring constantly right now. I'd have the Koski calipers measuring the bottom. I'd have those Ellsworth style calipers measuring through the bottom third here. Just making sure at all times that I know exactly how much material I'm working with. Let's go. I want to bring this right about here. So if our right about there is where we want to go. I'm trying to rotate this so it's facing up, and then we'll lock it into place. Good. Okay. I think I need to adjust the height. Yeah, I just use my gouge. I move the rest up, so let's get it, pull it down a little bit. Let's make sure we have enough. Bring this guy in here. Good. So I should have enough. Yeah, that should be perfect. Let's see what we're doing here. Okay. Oh, I meant to see if I could before, and I'll do it. I can see now, so it's helpful. But even if I couldn't see this, I always have to put my tool in to see what can I feel. Is there any high spots? Am I bottoming out anywhere? So this looks, yeah, I can get to where I need to get to with this tool. So I don't need the bent tool anymore. So let's finish her up. I have a lot of excess material here, so I'm just going to polish some of that out. Okay, here we go. Now it's going to get fun. Now I'm going to come through here. And like I said before, I want to rotate the cutting edge, especially when I'm using these carbide cutters. I want to rotate it into the cut. So I've already passed this corner. Now I'm cutting from left to right. So I want to rotate this to the right a little bit, so I navigate that, just like you would with a gouge. Okay, so I'm bottoming out here. Need a little bit more length. Oops, on this tool. I'm gonna let it out. Now this is where it gets tricky because I'm as deep as I want to go in this vessel, but I need some more length on this to get that bottom corner. So I just need to be really careful about how far down I go as I trim that corner up. I don't want to go all the way to the bottom because then I'll drill it too deep or I'll hollow it too deep. So I'm just going to take a little bit extra up here. Real light cuts. You'll notice the reason I'm riding this lathe like this is because I want this tool in my body. If I have it out here, one little catch and it's gonna go all crazy on me and we're done for the day. I'm gonna have to take a break and come back and start over with a new piece. I want this glued to me. I want an extension of my arm, of my body. Yeah, but let's see what we got. Okay, y'all. Again, a little fat through here. I would, if I would measure this, I'd figure out that I have a little bump right here. This is where I started cutting with my straight tool. I need to come back through with my bent tool, clean this up, and then I can tell this is a little bit fatter than I want it to be through this section. I'd also use my bent tool just to lightly, very light passes, take a little bit more material off, so that, again, it's nice and consistent. So that's it. We're going to call this good for the demo. This is going to be as hard as it's going to get. We still got some work ahead of us, though. We got to finish the bottom of this thing. So, I'm going to swap this out for a piece that's hollowed much more consistently and is intact. This piece here, and I'll show you how I finish the bottom. Because as you can imagine, jam chucking this creates a lot of problems. This is what I need. So,
And just as a reminder,
sir.
we do not have any time constraints here.
Oh,
You have all the time you need.
well, 11 o'clock works for you
Most
guys?
everybody brought a pillow and blanket.
Well, it's a slumber party. I didn't realize.
Most of us retired.
Well, most of our facilities, we have to be out by a certain time.
Well, I was like, oh man, I got 15
We
minutes. Well, I'll still be considerate of y'all's time. So let me just show you what we're working with here. This is a piece I hollowed at home and prep. You can see it's. I mean, we're pretty consistent on the shape, right? And it's a pretty close approximation. One thing I forgot to do. I'm getting ahead of myself and forgetting another important step. So if you'll excuse me, I'm going to put this back on. So this is something we need to talk about. We did not finish the rim. Remember, we left all that meat up here. I don't want a big fat rim. That's not what I want. I want a nice, delicate, elegant rim. So let's make that happen. So I'm going to get my 1/4 inch bowl gouge out. Get this guy going again. Oh, come on. And good speed. Now there's a sequence here because I don't want blowout on the rim. The rim is very delicate, so I got to think about in what sequence I'm going to make these cuts. What I like to do is I like to true up the inside first and drop this down. This rim is actually pretty good. I didn't bang around too much in there, so it's not too bad. But if you had any if you had a little catch or something like that, this is how you would true it up. You come in just like we did when we opened the hole to begin with to start hollowing. I go a little bit low. I'm going to go fully 90 degrees in the flute, engage, open it up, and just push forward, a little forward pressure. There will be a little bit of blowout at the bottom. We're going to fix that with sanding. It's not a problem. Then I'm going to come, excuse me, I'm going to come inside out because I don't want any blowout on the inside of the rim. So I'm going to push all that, I'm going to go this way so the grain folds down that way and I get blowout on the other side. Pardon for the awkward cut here. A little compromise. Okay, so now I have a little bit of blowout here. Not a big deal because I'm going to take that down as well. I'm going to bring this up just a little bit. Just a bit. Cool. Now I'm going to delicately, especially with this piece because half of it's missing, very delicately I'm going to start taking off material. And then what I like to do, that's probably good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to do one little push cut thing. I've heard this called a suicide cut. This is how David Ellsworth teaches people to do the inside of their bowl where you're riding the inside curve. That's how I like to do this final push cut. I don't know why. You could do it in a standard way, but I like to do it like this. I'll ride this bevel. Like it. That's just how I like to do it. Cool. Okay, so now we have the rim. It's finished. Now it really does look like that one. But that's a really important step, right? The rim's got to be pristine. It's got to be beautiful. And if there's a little bit of tear out in here, it's not a big deal. When you get to like 320 grit, 400 grit, you're going to sand inside here. I'm reluctant, unless you have a really bad tool mark or something like that. I wouldn't go any finer than, or any coarser than 320 on the rim. Because it just takes a lot of material out of there. And you work really hard for this tiny rim. You don't want sandpaper to open it up artificially. So I'll take 320. And then as it's in here, I'll pull it in here and I'll rotate it in. And that way, I'll kind of like ball it up or roll it up. And then I'll rotate it in so that it touches the inside and kind of handles that little blowout. You won't see that tear out anymore. Okay, now we're ready to go to the final piece and finish this up. I'm gonna swap this out. There's one critical measurement. So even if this was the piece we were gonna jam chuck and finish the bottom, I still gotta take it out, and I'll show you why. I need to figure out, I kind of know where the bottom of this is, but I need to be sure I know where the bottom of this is when I start to shape this. The last thing I want is a funnel. I've worked too hard for that. So I want to know exactly where the bottom of this thing is. This is where these Joukowsky calipers come in super handy. I take this part, I put it in my little registration mark here, and then I fish this through the hole. That's how much material I have between the bottom of the tenon and the bottom of the vessel where I've stopped hollowing. Let's get our, so I want to measure this. This is how much material I have to work with before I blow to the bottom. It is 30 millimeters. That's what I have to work with. So I'm going to do this again. We're going to put this guy, I'm going to take this off. And we're going to jam chuck it. I'm not fancy. There we go. Thank you. I'm not fancy, but I like to use this this vacuum chuck. I used to use a traditional jam chuck that I turned. I just got tired of having to true it up every time I wanted to use it, and it was just a pain. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna bite the bullet, buy one of these. It runs true every time. I never got to true it up. It's ready as soon as I want to use it. So I'll put that in place. I'm gonna bring the tailstock back up. One trick that I've learned, what I used to do is bring the tailstock back up. I've been working out, Charlie. It's fine. Bring the tailstock back up. And what I used to do is I'd find this registration point here. I'd put it back in my little cupping point. I'd push this back up, and then I'd bump this around until it was centered. Sometimes it would take me 30 seconds. Sometimes it would take me 10 minutes. God, what a pain. What I do now, Robust makes this, or I think it comes with the Robust Live Center, but you can buy them second-hand or on the secondary market as well. It's this little adapter that threads. This is a 1 1/4 times 8 adapter that threads over your cupping point. So now what I do is once I measure the depth of this thing, I put it back in the chuck. Where's it again? There it is. Here's my chuck. Put it back in the chuck, and then I put the chuck on that Live Center. And now I know when I push that up to the vacuum chuck, I know it's going to be centered. I don't have to worry about it. Cool. All right. Boom. Perfectly centered. Now what I like to do, but we still have a little bit of a problem.
Another tool.
Yeah. Hey, you're welcome. So this is gaffer's tape. It's like if you have to like tape cords to the floor or something like that. If you're like an audiovisual person, this is great. It's almost as strong as duct tape, not quite, but almost. The nice thing, it leaves no residue. I'm gonna tape this just really loosely to this. I don't need a perfect. I'm not gonna turn it like this, but I'm going to tape this here just to hold it in place because I can't do much with this in place. This is great to help me center. I'm really thank you so much, but you gotta go. And I'm gonna swap you out for this cupping point, Live Center. That I put somewhere. Oh, it's already on there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep that. And this looks like a bunch of steps, but really, once you get it down, it'll make your life a lot easier. It's way easier than tap centering. So now I just pull this back, and now I can stay. I can pull this out. Yeah, take this guy off. And now I just pull this up here. Now should still run true. Good. Now I'm good to go. Now I can. I'm actually gonna leave that tape there. No, I'll take it off just so it's a little unsightly. I don't want you to look at that. There we go. Okay. And I'm gonna get my 3/8. How many millimeters did I have? Do y'all remember? 30. Nice. You did well. So. Take off all this excess. flying. Come on now, bud. Now, let's take a look and see where is 30 at.
Hang on.
So this is 30. So you can see I got a lot of material. I have a lot of excess down there at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and draw a little line here. It's about 30, I think. Yeah, almost spot on. Thanks, Jaramiah. Let's go ahead and, so that's where, we don't want to go all the way to 30 though, right? We want to leave a little bit. So I'm going to say, that's where I want the bottom of my vessel to be, that line. So I'm going to come up. Using the wing of this gouge, just take all this material away. And I know I have maybe half inch, maybe 3/8 of an inch of material at the bottom, so I can tuck this in. I'm going to kind of measure again. Kind of handle this while it's moving. So this is kind of where I want that bottom to be. I don't know if y'all can see that in the pencil on there. So that's where we want the base to be. And I want the base to be about a ½ inch, which is just about as wide as the live center is. So that's a good reference point. So I'm going to just go ahead and make my life a little bit easier. I'm going to bring this up here. I don't have to worry about any. I know exactly where it needs to terminate. I'm going to go ahead and that's going to be the width of my base. And then we'll just kind of come up here. I'll do a traditional cut so it's not to teach bad habits. Okay. Now it's just a matter of where I'll shape this thing. Let's see if we can bring this up a little bit. And we'll shape it. So, definitely not too bad. So it's gonna be a little bit of a, you can see where like I started cutting, it's a little bit off. It's not completely, wasn't completely true, which it never will be, but we'll take care of all this with sandpaper. Before I would have flipped this over, I would have sanded it while it's still in the chuck to about 400. And now I'll pick back up where I've cut. So it's still sanded to 400 here, but I'm gonna have to sand this up, clean this up with sandpaper. I left this tenon on because if I'm going to turn this on, if I'm going to finish this on the lathe, which I usually finish it with shellac, I can grab this with pin jaws. And now I can still have this little base, grab it with the pin jaws, and still finish it on the lathe. A lot of folks struggle to do both, right? If you finish it on the lathe, usually you're going to have a big chunky base. This kind of solves that problem for me. But with this piece, I'm gonna finish it at home. I'll give it to Tim, and you guys can put it in a raffle or do whatever you want with it if that interests you. But I'm gonna finish it off the lathe, so I'm gonna show you how I take this off. But I'm gonna go ahead and, because someone might have this someday, I'm gonna actually do a nice job here. Yeah, this is just a little bit of kind of shear scrape to clean this up a little bit. You can look at that. Actually looks pretty good. I'm going to do one last thing. I'm going to take my spindle gouge. Yeah, I always want this. I never want a little lip at the bottom. So what I do is I take this and drop this rest a little bit. I take the spindle gouge and do one final pass. I kind of countersink the base so I don't have. I know there's no little lip that's going to prevent it from sitting like I want it to. There we go. And now we'll see. I'll take this off. This is where this gaffer tape comes in real handy. Now I have a vacuum chuck at home. I vacuum chuck it. The problem is, even with the vacuum chuck, when you get these down to like 3/16 or sometimes 1/8 of an inch along the end grain, you're still pulling air through the end grain and you can't get a good vacuum seal. So you have to use this anyway. It'll give you some suction, but not enough that you can pull that away and confidently work on this vessel. So what I do is I tape it like this. Again, you can buy 3 rolls of this, 3 rolls for like $10 on Amazon. It's a godsend. I use it every time I turn.
What'd you say the name of the tape is?
Gaffer's tape, Gaff. Yep, and this brand's called Well Stick. This is if you search on Amazon, you should be able to find it. It's pretty inexpensive, or it was. Dang it, Charlie!
It's not like duct tape that leaves a residue behind.
That's what I was thinking.
Really good tape.
Yeah, I will put this on so if I finish something on the lathe, I'll like with shellac, I'll let it cure overnight, usually at least 12, but usually closer to 18 hours, and I'll put this on there, and it comes right off. Doesn't affect this finish at all, even if it's that fresh. Put this here, and I'll use a little bit more than I probably need. Just spend 30 cents on tape and have this turn out okay, then get cheap about it, and then it just comes flying off. But then I like to just go right around the side and hold all these pieces in. This will also, if you have the vacuum chuck going, this will help seal things up. And I'll actually, sometimes you can hear it suck into the end grain, and I'll put it where I need to put it to stop that. But okay, so boom. That should be good. Famous last words. So now, this is where it's going to get interesting. Okay. Let's get it going here. I'm going to slow this down. This does not need to be going 1800 RPM. Let me slow this down a little bit. Yeah, I'd say take it nice and slow here. Err on the side of caution. I'm going to have it going about 1,000. There we go. I'm going to carefully pull this away. Actually, while it's still there, that's a lot of material to have to take off, and I'm worried that it's going to come dislodged. So while it's here, I'm going to take off most of this. What I forgot to bring was my parting tool. I usually just take a parting tool or a Japanese saw, and there we go. Okay, now it's working. Okay. So now we'll just come in and clean this up. Nice and slow. And then, this is where my base is going to be. Counterthink that base a little bit. One up there. Should have fatter base on more. Let me smooth it out a little bit. Okay, one of them. There we go. There we go. Now I'm going to come in. A little bit of a recessed base, so it sits nice. I don't want to have to, I can sand everything but the base once it's off the lathe. If I try to sand the base, it could get all wonky on me. I don't want that. So I want a nice final pass in the base. What's like that mean? There we go. Okay. Yeah, we got some sanding to do, but that's not a big deal. We can handle that. And now, we have a final hole form here. Again, it needs to be sanded to the bottom here, but should sit nice and pretty for us there. Good. Ta-da! There we go. We'll pass it around. It's pretty light. Yeah, it's maple, so it's a little bit dense, but it's not bad for an hour and a half worth of work. Like I said, I'll come through at home. I see Tim at the WGW meetings. I'll finish at the house. I might texture it a little bit. There was a little bit of a ring shake that I had to fill with CA, but I'll finish up at the house, and then the club can have it for whatever they want to have it for.
Fantastic demo. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
What was the tool count? Additional tools that
The 4 new ones.
37.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, if we have to buy at least 5 tools, it was a really.
That's how you gauge success. Okay, well, you're welcome. I'm glad it
You
worked
know,
out.
anything to get more tools in the shop.
Or make kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good.
You're welcome, guys. And you know, like I said, I'm online, Round and Hall on Instagram. Charlie has my info. Tim has my info. If any of y'all have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to
And
chat
that
with you.
was really nice that you had that cutaway so that we could see what you were doing.
Oh, I'm glad to.
Because otherwise, everybody's just seeing you moving the tool
Yeah.
around and measuring every now and then.
Yep.
That was an eye opener for me.
Oh, good. Good.
Thank you.
Sir.
So,
Do you have a list of the tools that you use?
I don't. That's a great idea, Dennis. I'll put one together for you. Yeah.